California has long sold the world an irresistible dream: sunshine, prosperity, coastal beauty, and endless opportunity. But in 2025, that image is cracking. Behind the sparkling beaches and postcard skylines, the state's housing market is entering one of its most uncomfortable chapters in decades. Prices are overstretched, insurance is becoming unaffordable, climate risk is reshaping entire regions, and communities once booming with newcomers are now watching residents pack up and leave. Whether you're a beer renter or investor, the warning signs aren't subtle anymore. They're flashing bright red. In this countdown, we're breaking down the top 10 worst cities to buy a home in California in 2025, based on affordability, migration shifts, climate exposure, inventory trends, and long-term stability. These places aren't just expensive, they're showing patterns that could turn today's purchase into tomorrow's regret. From star-studded zip codes to tech-powered metros, each city on this list tells a story of cost rising faster than incomes, risks rising faster than protections, and demand falling faster than sellers want to admit. So let's dive in, starting with a city known for fame, glamour, and financial headaches. Los Angeles is still marketed as the city where dreams are made, but for homebuyers in 2025, it's becoming the city where budgets break. The median home price hovers around $870,000, yet the typical household earns roughly $75,000. That gap creates a brutal reality. Monthly mortgage payments often exceed $4,200, and that's before taxes, HOA fees, or insurance. Speaking of insurance, wildfire exposure and climate threats have pushed premiums sharply upward, with some homeowners seeing bills double compared to a few years ago, and people are noticing. LA has lost more than 32,000 residents since 2023, driven out by rising costs, growing crime concerns, and stagnant wages. Once hot neighborhoods like Echo Park and West Hollywood now face longer sale times and widespread price cuts. More than 23% of listings saw reductions in early 2025. LA still shines on the outside, but behind the curtain, affordability is collapsing, and more families are deciding the dream just isn't worth the price anymore. Oakland has always carried its own identity: bold, creative, and culturally rich. For years, it served as the Bay Area's more affordable alternative to San Francisco, drawing families, artists, and investors who wanted the energy of the region without the crushing price tags. But by 2025, Oakland's housing market is no longer a refuge, it's a warning. The median home price now sits above $720,000, while most households barely clear $80,000 in income. That mismatch has turned homeownership into a long-term strain instead of a long-term asset. The market's instability is becoming visible. Over 30% of homes listed in early 2025 had to cut prices, and properties are sitting unsold for 60 days or more, a sign of weakening demand in a city once known for fast-moving inventory. But the biggest red flag isn't prices, it's public safety. Oakland now ranks among the top 5 U.S. cities for property-related crime. Carjackings, break-ins, and assaults have pushed residents and investors to reconsider the future here. More than 12,000 people have left Oakland since 2023, and population loss is never a positive indicator for long-term housing strength. Then there's the insurance problem. With wildfire-prone hillsides and increasing climate volatility, premiums are climbing fast. In some areas, homeowners are paying 40 to 45% more than they did just a few years ago. Add that to rising taxes, shaky investor confidence, and slowing wage growth, and you have a market that feels bloated with listings but short on committed buyers. Oakland's vibrancy is undeniable, from culture to cuisine to creativity, but in 2025, its housing foundation is showing serious cracks buyers cannot ignore. Stockton has experienced more housing market ups and downs than most California cities. After its historic collapse during the 2008 crisis, the city spent years rebuilding its housing foundation, regaining confidence, and attracting new families looking for affordability. But in 2025, Stockton is once again showing troubling signs that the recovery may be slipping. The median home price now sits around for $180,000, which might appear modest compared to coastal cities, but the typical household income is only about $66,000. That gap stretches buyers to their limits, creating one of the most financially strained ownership markets in the entire Central Valley. The pressure is now visible in the data. More than 28% of listings saw price cuts in the last quarter, and homes are lingering on the market for 50 days or longer, pointing to softening demand. Even more concerning is the rise in foreclosure filings, up roughly 17% year over year. Many homeowners who locked into adjustable-rate mortgages during the low-interest boom are now being squeezed as rates reset higher. Combined with persistent inflation, household budgets are cracking under the weight of rising payments, groceries, utilities, and transportation costs. Crime remains a stubborn challenge as well. Stockton continues to rank high for violent crime per capita, and that reputation has become a major deterrent for families and first-time buyers who worry about long-term neighborhood safety and property value stability. Adding to the instability, new construction on the outskirts of the city is flooding the market with supply just as beer demand is cooling. Builders are offering incentives, discounts, and closing cost assistance, but even those deals aren't enough to counter the broader economic pressure. Stockton's potential is real, but in 2025, the market is stretched thin, and the risk of another downturn is creeping closer. San Diego has mastered the art of looking effortless, postcard beaches, perfect weather, a booming military presence, and a rapidly growing tech and biotech scene. On the surface, it still feels like one of the most desirable places to live in the entire country. But beneath that sunny exterior, the 2025 housing market in San Diego is beginning to show deep structural cracks. The median home price has now pushed beyond $850,000, while median household income hovers around $82,000. That means many families are spending over 40% of their gross income on housing alone, well above what financial experts consider sustainable. Even high earners are feeling squeezed as rising mortgage rates and climbing property taxes shrink their buying power. Insurance is another growing storm. Because of increased wildfire exposure, coastal erosion, and creeping sea level risks, insurance premiums have skyrocketed, jumping more than 50% since 2020. Traffic congestion is worsening, public infrastructure is straining, and population growth, once one of San Diego's strengths, has slowed to almost zero. Burbank has always held a special place in Southern California, the polished suburb where entertainment meets everyday life. With major studios, charming neighborhoods, and a reputation for safety and stability, it long attracted families looking for a quieter alternative to Los Angeles. But in 2025, the reality on the ground has shifted dramatically, and buying in Burbank is becoming a financial test few can pass. The median home price is pushing close to $1 million, yet the average household income remains just under $90,000. That's an enormous imbalance, especially when mortgage rates hover around 7%. Even dual-income families, once considered comfortable, are finding themselves priced out or forced to take on monthly payments that leave little room for savings or emergencies. Property taxes in Burbank sit among the highest in Los Angeles County, and insurance premiums are rising at a pace that's alarming both new buyers and long-time residents. Extreme heat waves, prolonged dry seasons, and wildfire risks from surrounding hills have pushed insurance costs upward, with many homeowners now paying well over $4,500 per month for their mortgage, taxes, and insurance combined. And that's not for luxury estates, that's for modest single-family homes. Meanwhile, the housing market itself is losing momentum. Homes that used to spark bidding wars are sitting on the market for 60 days or more, and sellers are cutting prices by 10% or more just to attract hesitant buyers. With slower wage growth and ongoing layoffs from entertainment and tech companies nearby, confidence in Burbank's long-term affordability is fading. Families who once saw Burbank as their forever home are quietly moving out, seeking relief in more affordable regions. The city still looks golden in photographs, but its housing market is flashing warning signs buyers cannot ignore. Santa Cruz has always been a place where free spirits, surfers, artists, and nature lovers come together to create something unique. With its rugged coastline, redwood forests, and unmistakable laid-back vibe, it has long felt like a slice of coastal heaven. But in 2025, that heaven has become extremely hard and increasingly risky to buy into. The median home price in Santa Cruz has surged to about $1.2 million, while the average household income floats just above $85,000. That creates one of the worst affordability ratios in the entire country. Many buyers who attempt to enter the market end up committing more than half of their gross income to housing costs, a financial burden that's simply unsustainable in the long run. But affordability is only one layer of the struggle. Santa Cruz sits in the crosshairs of multiple climate hazards. Coastal neighborhoods face regular flooding threats and erosion, while surrounding hills are increasingly vulnerable to wildfires. Insurance premiums reflect this reality. Since 2022, costs have jumped more than 40%, and many homeowners now require extra fire coverage just to qualify for a mortgage. Some insurers have quietly limited coverage or pulled out entirely, leaving buyers to navigate expensive, stripped-down policy options. The housing market's momentum is fading as well. Over 25% of listings in early 2025 saw price reductions, and average days on market have nearly doubled since 2023. Investors who once flooded the area with cash offers have stepped back, worried about long-term climate exposure and the shrinking pool of qualified buyers. Young families, meanwhile, are heading inland where housing doesn't require financial gymnastics. Santa Cruz will always be enchanting, but buying here in 2025 means embracing high risk, high cost, and high uncertainty all at once. Santa Barbara has long been the crown jewel of California's coastline, a sun-drenched escape lined with Spanish-style architecture, palm trees, and ocean breezes that feel almost too perfect to be real. For decades, it symbolized peace, privilege, and a lifestyle reserved for the lucky few. But in 2025, even this ultra-desirable city is showing unmistakable signs of strain, and the housing market is no exception. Home prices here have climbed to nearly $1.5 million, while local incomes hover around $90,000. That's not a gap, it's a financial canyon. Middle-class families are almost entirely priced out, and even high-income earners are questioning whether the cost aligns with the city's changing reality. The market slowdown is becoming more obvious by the month. Listing times are up 60% compared to last year, and nearly 30% of homes required price reductions in the first quarter of 2025. A city once fueled by unrelenting demand is now witnessing hesitation from buyers who increasingly feel they're paying top dollar for fading stability. And then there's the climate threat. Santa Barbara sits surrounded by wildfire-prone foothills, drought-sensitive landscapes, and coastal zones vulnerable to mudslides during heavy storms. Insurance premiums have skyrocketed. Many homeowners now pay over $5,000 a year, and hillside properties are sometimes denied coverage altogether. Without viable insurance, buyers can't finance homes, pushing certain neighborhoods into precarious territory. The local workforce is also thinning, Between 2022 and 2024, more than 8,000 residents moved away, many of them service workers, teachers, and essential staff priced out by rising costs. Restaurants, schools, and small businesses are struggling to retain employees, creating ripple effects across the local economy. Santa Barbara's beauty is undeniable, but in 2025, that beauty comes with mounting risks and one of the least accessible housing markets in the nation. Palm Springs has always been a symbol of escape, a sun-soaked hideaway where celebrities lounge by mid-century pools, retirees embraced quiet desert living, and weekend travelers soaked in the resort town glow. But in 2025, the reality for home buyers in Palm Springs looks far less glamorous than the glossy postcards suggest. The median home price has climbed to around $675,000, yet the median household income remains stuck near $70,000. That mismatch has created a housing market where locals struggle to compete, investors are pulling back, and many newcomers underestimate the cost of maintaining a home in the extreme desert climate. And the climate is exactly where the biggest warning signs emerge. Palm Springs endured over 60 days above 110 degrees Fahrenheit last year, a scorching trend that's pushing utility bills to record heights. Air conditioners are running nonstop, and electricity costs can easily soar into hundreds of dollars a month during summer. Water restrictions are growing tighter as drought conditions deepen, and the region's reliance on groundwater has raised long-term sustainability concerns. Wildfire risk across the Coachella Valley has surged as well, and insurance premiums have followed. Homeowners have seen rates climb by nearly 50% in the past 3 years, with many neighborhoods now labeled high-risk zones. Some insurers have scaled back coverage options, leaving owners with expensive policies offering less protection. The housing market itself is slowing. Oversupply from aggressive development, combined with investor sell-offs, has created a glut of listings. In early 2025, 31% of homes on the market saw price reductions, and the average days on market has stretched beyond the 50-day mark. Homes that once sold in a weekend now sit waiting for buyers who are increasingly hesitant. Palm Springs will always attract tourists and retirees, but buying here now means facing rising heat, rising costs, and rising uncertainty. But the most shocking shift isn't just the falling prices, it's the power reversal. For years, tenants were begging for a chance to apply. In 2025, landlords are the ones begging people to move in. In cities like Phoenix, Austin, Nashville, Tampa, and Charlotte, the same buildings that opened with luxury launch parties now offer 3 months free rent, $1,000 move-in bonuses, free parking, free gym access, free everything, rent reductions of 15 to 30% compared to 2020 to peaks. Some landlords are even calling previous applicants who were rejected years ago, asking if they want the unit again at half the price. And this isn't just a Sunbelt oversupply issue. Even high-demand cities like New York, Boston, Los Angeles, and Seattle are seeing vacancy rises for the first time in a decade. Why? Because the problem is deeper than just new apartments opening. Millennials age out of the rental market. They bought homes, moved to suburbs, or left expensive cities entirely. The giant wave of renters born between 1981 and 1996 is shrinking. Gen Z can't afford high-rent cities, so they're living with parents longer, choosing cheaper states, or splitting rentals with more roommates than ever. Remote work didn't die. It matured. Companies stopped forcing people back to the office, and millions realized they could work from anywhere cheaper. Developers built too much luxury housing. The market is flooded with units targeting the top 10%, while income growth for everyone else stagnated. As a result, the US suddenly flipped from a historic housing shortage to a renter's market, something not seen since the Great Recession. And here's the twist no one expected. Landlords are now competing with each other, not tenants. In some neighborhoods, entire blocks of new buildings are half empty. Leasing agents are giving tour every hour just to hit quotas. Rental companies are offering sign today or will drop the price another $200 deals. This isn't a soft landing, this is a full-blown rent correction.